The first day, Amaka took a flask of hot tea to the old woman in the park. It wasn't out of habit. It was an impulse that squeezed her chest, as if a quiet voice whispered, "Don't leave her alone today." And what Amaka didn't know, what no one knew, was that this small, steaming flask would ignite a truth so immense that when it finally came to light, a proud billionaire would be left speechless, his heart laid bare. Because sometimes, the most powerful stories don't begin in opulent mansions or lavish offices. They begin on a worn-out bench, in just any park, with a tired woman shivering from the chill, and a housemaid who chooses to look where everyone else turns away. But listen to this, because if you stay, you'll understand why this story has brought tears even to those who swore they felt nothing anymore. Amaka took hot tea every day to an unknown old woman, and when Chief Obina Okoro, the owner of the house where Amaka worked, found out, he thought it was foolishness, a waste of time, a strange habit. Until one day, by chance, he saw her with his own eyes, and in that instant, something broke within him. It wasn't about the tea, it wasn't about the old woman, it was about the way Amaka handed her that flask, as if she were holding something sacred. It was about the way the old woman looked at her, as if Amaka was the last good thing left in the world. And it was about what the billionaire heard next, words so simple yet so devastating that they forced him to confront a truth he had been hiding for years. Before I continue, let me tell you something. If you've ever felt that the world has forgotten good people, subscribe to the channel, because stories like this remind you that a small gesture can change a destiny. And now, tell me in the comments, what would you do if you discovered that someone close to you was secretly helping a person on the street every day? Would it annoy you or inspire you? Write it down, because what's coming will make you think differently. Amaka was 32 years old, light-skinned, with dark hair tied back in a practical bun, and a gaze that always seemed to be asking permission to exist. She had arrived in Lagos from Oshogbo, searching for work to support her 7-year-old son, Emeka, who was her reason for rising even when her body couldn't. She worked in the house of Chief Obina Okoro, a renowned businessman across the city, owner of construction companies, hotels, and investments, one of those men who appear in magazines with perfect smiles but who, in person, rarely look you in the eye. Chief Obina lived in an upscale area near Ikoyi, in a massive house with large windows that reflected the sky as if the outside world were just decoration. He had staff, a gardener, a driver, a cook, and something else, a heavy silence, as if that house was filled with unspoken things. Amaka was the new one, who had replaced 2 other housemaids in less than 3 months, and that already said a lot. From the first day, Mama Bimpe, the head housekeeper, had warned her in a low voice while showing her where the cleaning supplies were. "My daughter, here you work fast, no questions, and don't poke your nose where it doesn't belong." The chief is complicated. Amaka didn't ask what complicated meant, because when you have to pay rent, buy medicine, and send your child to school, you learn not to ask too many questions. But still, some things were noticeable. Chief Obina Okoro was not a happy man, nor even a calm one. Sometimes Amaka would see him go out to the terrace with his phone glued to his ear and a frown on his face, as if every call was an argument. Other times, she would hear him pacing the hallway in the dead of night, with long, impatient strides, like a caged lion. And at the dining table, there was always an extra plate set, an empty seat, as if someone was missing. Amaka noticed, but said nothing. Until one day, while taking out the rubbish, Chief Obina passed near her and spoke without looking at her. "Don't dump the bags in the main bin. Use the one at the back." Amaka nodded. "Yes, Chief Okoro." Chief Obina stopped for a second, as if he had expected a different reaction. "What's your name?" "Amaka, Chief." "Amaka," he repeated, tasting the name as if he didn't like it. "Good. Just do your work and don't give me trouble." And he left. It wasn't a direct insult, but Amaka felt the humiliation just the same. Because some people don't need to shout to make you feel less than. Still, Amaka endured. She endured the long days, the demands, the coldness, until the old woman in the park appeared. The Freedom Park was a 5-minute walk from the house, and Amaka passed through it when she went to buy bread or fruit at the Tejuosho market. She saw her for the first time on a Monday. The old woman was sitting on a bench with her back hunched and a jacket too thin for the Harmattan chill. Her gray hair was disheveled, and her lips were dry. Beside her, a small plastic bag with two things inside, a piece of hard bread and a napkin. Amaka couldn't help but look at her, not out of curiosity, but because of that jolt of reality that leaves you breathless. Because the old woman reminded her of her grandmother, the same look, the same tired dignity, the same way of being alone even when surrounded by people. Amaka kept walking, but after 3 steps, she stopped, turned around, and approached. "Excuse me, Mama, are you all right?" The old woman looked up with suspicion, as if the world had taught her that every kind question hides a trap. "I am alive," she replied curtly. "That is enough." Amaka felt a pang in her heart. She didn't insist. "Well, if you need anything, I pass by here often." The old woman let out a humorless laugh. "People pass," she said. "That's what they do. They pass by." And she continued to stare straight ahead. Amaka left, but that day she couldn't get her out of her head. That night, while preparing Emeka's lunchbox, she stared at the boiling water and thought, how can someone remember their entire life on a bench? The next day, she made extra hot tea, poured it into a flask, and put it in her bag. She didn't know why. She just knew she had to. From that day on, the tea became a ritual. It wasn't expensive tea. It wasn't a grand gesture. It was just hot tea with 2 sachets of sugar that Amaka saved from the chief's dining room. When she handed it over, the old woman at first said nothing, just took it with trembling hands and drank slowly, as if the warmth settled her soul. Amaka would sit beside her for a few minutes. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they just stayed in silence. And in that silence, Amaka understood that there were pains that didn't ask for solutions, they asked for company. The old woman's name was Mama Ngozi. She didn't want to say her surname at first, as if her surname was a door she didn't want to reopen. But with the days, she loosened up a bit. "Do you have children?" she asked one Thursday. "Yes, one. His name is Emeka. He is my life." Mama Ngozi looked down. "I had one," she said, "and I lost him." Amaka didn't ask how, because some topics felt like glass. She just squeezed her hand gently. "I am sorry, Mama Ngozi." The old woman swallowed. "Don't say it like that, my child," she whispered, "because if you say it like that, it makes me want to cry." And Amaka felt a lump in her throat. From then on, Amaka didn't just bring tea. Sometimes she brought a sweet bun, or an old sweater, or a fruit. Nothing that her son needed, nothing that took away from her essentials, but enough so that Mama Ngozi wouldn't feel invisible. And at some point, Amaka started to notice something strange. Every time she mentioned her son, Mama Ngozi would get tense, as if that word opened a wound that still bled. And every time Amaka spoke of her job, of a big house in Ikoyi, Mama Ngozi would fall silent, staring at the ground with a strange expression, as if she was doing sums in her head, as if that information hurt her in a personal way. Amaka noticed it, but didn't understand until the day Chief Obinna Okoro followed her. Chief Obinna had been observing details for weeks. Food in the fridge disappeared a little faster. The tea finished sooner than normal, and Amaka sometimes took a little longer to return in the mornings when sent out for something. It wasn't much, but Chief Obinna was the kind of man who noticed even the missing air. One night, he called Mama Bimpe, the new one. "What does she do when she goes out?" Mama Bimpe tensed. "What do you mean, Chief? Don't play dumb. Does she go to see someone? Bring people here, steal?" Mama Bimpe's eyes widened. "No, Chief. Amaka is. She is hardworking." Chief Obinna clenched his jaw. "Then tell me, why is she spending the house's things?" Mama Bimpe hesitated. I haven't seen her steal." Chief Obinna gritted his teeth. "Tomorrow, I will follow her." Mama Bimpe wanted to speak, but she fell silent, because in that house, when Chief Obinna made a decision, no one changed his mind. And that's how the next day, Chief Obinna Okoro ended up in Freedom Park, standing a few meters away, watching his housemaid deliver tea to an old woman, as if she were handing over her own heart. In his mind, Chief Obinna already had a story crafted. Amaka is deceiving me. She is taking things. She is involved in something. But what he saw didn't fit his prejudice, because he saw no trickery, no malice. He saw something he didn't understand, compassion, and yet his pride didn't allow him to feel tenderness. He felt anger. "What are you doing?" he growled, appearing suddenly. Amaka almost dropped the flask of tea. "Chief Okoro, I." Mama Ngozi looked up, and for the first time, her expression changed completely. Her eyes widened, her face turned pale, and the flask trembled in her hands as if she had seen a ghost. Chief Obinna looked at the old woman and frowned. "Who is she?" Amaka swallowed nervously. She is Mama Ngozi. I bring her tea because..." Chief Obinna cut her off. "With things from my house?" Amaka blushed. "It's not stealing, Chief. I pay for it with what I earn. I only use the hot water from..." Chief Obinna's voice was hard. "You don't decide who you help with my time. I pay you to work, not to play savior." Amaka clenched her fists, holding back tears. "I am not playing, Chief. She is alone." Chief Obinna let out a short, cold laugh. "And what's that to me? Is the whole city my responsibility now?" Amaka looked him in the eyes for the first time with courage. "No, but it's everyone's responsibility not to pretend to be blind." The silence grew heavy. Chief Obinna took a step towards Mama Ngozi. "And what did you tell her to make her bring you things?" Mama Ngozi trembled, but not from fear of Chief Obinna, but from something deeper, something old, something that was suffocating her. With a broken voice, Mama Ngozi let out a phrase that changed the air of the park. "I didn't ask her for anything," she whispered. "She brings me tea, because she reminds me of someone I lost." Chief Obinna stood still. "Who?" Mama Ngozi slowly raised her gaze and looked at him with an intensity that disarmed him. "My daughter." Amaka's eyes widened. Chief Obinna swallowed. "Your daughter?" Mama Ngozi clutched the flask to her chest, and with accumulated tears that finally dared to fall, she said, "Yes, and you also remind me of her, Obinna." Chief Obinna took a step back as if he had been struck. "How do you know my name?" Mama Ngozi breathed with difficulty, her voice breaking. "Because I watched you grow up." And in that second, Amaka understood that what was happening was much bigger than a cup of tea. And Chief Obinna, for the first time in a long time, felt fear, because if that old woman was telling the truth, then something from his past was about to explode. And that was the only thing Chief Obinna Okoro could not control with money. The silence in Freedom Park grew thick. The sounds of the park children playing, the balloon seller, the distant music from a street musician seemed to have muted around that bench. Chief Obinna Okoro was not a man easily surprised. He had faced financial crises, lawsuits, corporate betrayals, but that phrase, "I watched you grow up," hit him like a stone in the chest. "I don't know who you are," he said with a firm voice, although something trembled inside him. "And I don't like being played with." Mama Ngozi did not avert her gaze. "I am not playing, Obinna." Amaka watched the scene with a pounding heart. She felt she was witnessing something she shouldn't, but she also couldn't leave. There was too much contained emotion in the air. Chief Obinna clenched his fists. "My mother died years ago." Mama Ngozi closed her eyes for a second. A tear rolled down her time-worn cheek. "Yes, she died to you." That phrase unsettled him. "What does that mean?" Mama Ngozi took a deep breath. "It means they told you she died because it was easier than explaining the truth." Amaka felt a shiver run down her spine. Chief Obinna took a step back. "You're confused." "No." Mama Ngozi's voice was soft, but firm. "Confused. I waited many years for you to return." Chief Obinna's world began to crack from within. His mother, they always told him, had died when he was 5 years old, that it had been a sudden illness, that his father had done everything possible. There was never an open wake, never many photos, never details, only silence. And now this woman on a bench was saying, "No, it's not possible." Chief Obinna shook his head. "My father would never lie about something like that." Mama Ngozi let out a bitter laugh. "Your father never tolerated my desire to leave." Amaka's eyes widened. "Leave?" "Yes." Mama Ngozi looked at her trembling hands. "He wanted me to be the perfect wife. Quiet, submissive, but I had dreams. I had a voice." Chief Obinna felt the ground beneath his expensive shoes was no longer firm. "My father was a respected man. He was a powerful man. She corrected him, and he bought silences." Chief Obinna's heart pounded. "Are you inventing this, Mama Ngozi?" She looked at him with a mixture of pain and tenderness. "You have the same look when you get angry, just like when you were a child and didn't want to sleep." Amaka felt breathless. Chief Obinna began to breathe faster. Enough. But Mama Ngozi continued, knowing it might be her only chance. "They took you from my side one night. They said it was for your good, that I wasn't stable, that you needed discipline." Chief Obinna felt that something inside him wanted to listen, and something wanted to run away. "That's a lie. They forced me to sign papers. They said if I didn't, I would never see you again. Mama Ngozi's voice broke. I signed, believing it was temporary. Amaka put her hand to her mouth. The park no longer existed. Only that story breathed between them. Chief Obina remembered fragments. A small suitcase, a hurried hug, his father's voice saying, "Your mother is sick. She can't take care of you." Chief Obina's voice became lower. I remember she was crying. Mama Ngozi closed her eyes. I never stopped looking for you. A tremor ran through Chief Obina's body. And why are you here? Why in this park? Because I knew you lived nearby. She looked him directly. I didn't want to ruin your life. I just wanted to see you, even from afar. Amaka felt a knot in her chest. And the tea? She asked in a low voice. Mama Ngozi smiled faintly. The tea was the first gesture of kindness I received in years. Chief Obina observed her with a mixture of rage and bewilderment. And why didn't you come to my house? Why didn't you knock on the door? Mama Ngozi lowered her gaze. Because I feared you would close your heart to me just as your father did. That hit him hard. Chief Obina had always been cold, distant, controlling, and now this woman was insinuating that he had become the very thing he criticized. You have no proof of anything, he said, trying to regain control. Mama Ngozi reached into her worn bag and pulled out a small, old envelope, wrinkled by the years. I kept this. Chief Obina took it with stiff hands. It was a photo. Himself, small, sitting on a swing, and the woman behind him, young, smiling. Chief Obina's heart stopped for a second. That photo was not in any album in his house. Where did you get this? From my purse. I've carried it with me all these years. Amaka saw how the billionaire's face began to change. No longer arrogance, it was doubt. Chief Obina ran his finger over the image. This proves nothing. You have a scar on your left knee, Mama Ngozi said suddenly. You got it falling from that same swing. I carried you, crying, to the kitchen and promised I'd always be there. Chief Obina felt a punch to his stomach. That scar was there, and no one outside his close family knew it. Amaka watched as the impeccably dressed man began to lose his composure. If this is true, he whispered, then my whole life. He didn't finish the sentence, because it implied accepting that his father had separated him from his mother, that his history was incomplete, that his identity was built on a lie, and that was too much. Chief Obina turned around. I need to think. Obina, Mama Ngozi said with a fragile voice. I didn't come to destroy you. I just wanted to know if you were happy. That question was the cruelest of all. Was he happy? He had money, prestige, respect, but happiness. Amaka remembered the table with the empty plate, the nightly walks, the silence of that huge house. Chief Obina didn't answer. He just walked a few steps, but something stopped him. He turned again. If this is true, why did you never seek me out legally? Mama Ngozi breathed with difficulty. Because I had no resources. Because after signing those papers, I was alone. Because no one wanted to confront your father. Chief Obina felt his father's name began to weigh more heavily than ever. Amaka took a step forward. Chief Okoro, I didn't know anything about this. I know, he said without looking at her. The park seemed to observe them. The balloon seller passed by, oblivious to the emotional earthquake happening on that bench. And what do you want now? Chief Obina finally asked. Mama Ngozi looked at him with sincere tears. Nothing. I don't want your money. I don't want your name. I just wanted to tell you that I never stopped loving you. Chief Obina's heart broke in a place that had been armored for years. Because no one told him that. No one looked at him like that. And suddenly, he understood something devastating. He had spent years building empires, but he had never built a home. Amaka felt she was witnessing a moment that would change everything. Chief Obina took a deep breath. I need proof, documents, something to confirm this. Mama Ngozi nodded. I have them. Not here, but I have them. The billionaire put the photo in his inner jacket pocket. I will investigate. His voice was no longer harsh. It was vulnerable. Amaka felt a small relief, but then Mama Ngozi added something that left him immobile. Your father didn't just separate me from you. He also hid something else. Chief Obina looked at her tensely. What thing? Mama Ngozi hesitated for a second. That you weren't his only child. The world broke again. Amaka felt the air disappear. What are you saying? I am saying, Mama Ngozi whispered, that before I left, I was pregnant. The silence was absolute. Chief Obina felt his heart leap out of his chest. That's impossible. It's not. Amaka put her hand to her chest. She had another child? Mama Ngozi lowered her gaze. Yes, Chief Obina took a step back. Where is he? The tears finally fell uncontrollably. I lost him too. The pain in her voice was so profound that no one could doubt her sincerity. Your father made sure I never saw him again. Chief Obina's world no longer had form. Not only had he lost a mother, but also a brother or sister he never knew. Is he alive? He asked, his voice broken. Mama Ngozi slowly shook her head. I don't know. Amaka felt that this story was only just beginning to be unearthed. Chief Obina looked at the woman in front of him. He no longer saw her as a stranger. He saw her as a possibility, as a mirror of the past. And for the first time in many years, he felt like crying, but pride still fought within him. If this is true, he finally said, then my father stole more than a mother from me. Mama Ngozi nodded. He stole the truth from you. The sun began to descend slowly, painting the park in golden hues. Amaka understood that her small gesture of tea had opened a gigantic door. A truth buried for decades was beginning to breathe, and the most unsettling thing was that they still needed to discover what had happened to that second child, because if he was alive, that meant the Okoro family was not as Chief Obina always believed. And if he wasn't, then someone had to answer for it. Chief Obina looked at Amaka. Tomorrow, you don't work. She widened her eyes. Chief, come to my house at 8. I need you to hear something. Amaka felt fear and curiosity at the same time. Yes, Chief. Chief Obina looked at Mama Ngozi again. I promise nothing, but I will find out the truth. And in that instant, something changed. It wasn't reconciliation yet. It wasn't forgiveness. It was the beginning of a search. And when a man who always controlled everything decides to seek the truth, the past begins to tremble. That night, Chief Obina Okoro did not sleep. The photo remained on his desk, barely illuminated by the Italian crystal lamp that had always seemed elegant to him, but now cast long, unsettling shadows. The image was real, too real. He could remember the swing. He could remember his mother's light dress. He could remember her perfume. What he couldn't remember was the moment she died, and that was destroying him from within. In the main bedroom of the Ikoyi mansion, the silence was unbearable. The clock struck 3 a.m. when Chief Obina got up, put on a jacket, and went down to the private study where he kept family documents. If Mama Ngozi was telling the truth, there had to be traces. He opened the old metal file cabinet that had belonged to his father. Folders, deeds, wills, certificates. Everything was perfectly ordered, too perfect. Chief Obina began to review the documents related to his childhood: birth certificate, school records, health insurance. He looked for his mother's death certificate. It wasn't there. He felt a blow to his chest. He searched again with more anxiety. Nothing. How was it possible? He always believed he had seen it, always assumed it existed, but now he couldn't find any official proof of her death. Sweat dampened his hands. He picked up the phone, dialed the number of Barrister Tunde Salako, the family lawyer for 30 years. Obina, Tunde answered in a sleepy voice. Is something wrong? I need you to get me my mother's death certificate. There was a silence on the other end. That's in the family archives. Obina, it's not. Tunde took a deep breath. Your father handled many documents personally. Perhaps. Chief Obina interrupted him firmly. Did my mother really die when they said she died? The silence was longer this time. Too long. Obina, those are things of the past. Chief Obina's heart stopped for a second. Answer me, Tunde sighed. Your father requested that the matter not be stirred. That phrase was like an unspoken confirmation. What matter? I can't talk on the phone. Chief Obina closed his eyes. Doubt was no longer a possibility. It was a reality. Come tomorrow morning first thing. I'll be here, Tunde replied. Chief Obina hung up. He slumped into the leather chair. For years he defended his father's memory. He admired him, imitated him, and now he was discovering that perhaps the man who taught him to be strong had been responsible for his greatest emptiness. At 8 o'clock sharp, Amaka rang the doorbell of the mansion. She wasn't wearing a uniform, just a simple beige dress and an evident expression of nervousness. Mama Bimpi opened the door. Come in, my daughter. The chief is waiting for you. Amaka walked down the long corridor with a strange feeling in her stomach. Chief Obina stood in front of the large window, looking at the city. When she entered, he didn't turn immediately. Do you trust that woman? He asked, without preamble. Amaka swallowed. Yes, Chief. Chief Obina finally turned. His eyes were red, not from anger, but from something deeper. Last night I checked documents. My mother's death certificate does not exist. Amaka felt a chill. Then someone lied. The doorbell rang again. Barrister Tunde Salako entered minutes later with a black briefcase. He was an older man, elegant, with a gaze heavy with years of secrets. Chief Obinna greeted him gravely. "Sit down," Chief Obinna ordered. Amaka remained silent, almost invisible, but he didn't ask her to leave. That was already a change. Tunde opened the briefcase, took out an old folder, yellowed by time. "Your mother, Ngozi Okoro, did not die in 1994, he finally said. Amaka felt the air freeze. Chief Obinna clenched his teeth. "Then what happened?" Tunde hesitated. "Your father requested a legal separation. He alleged emotional instability. That is true. There was no medical proof. It was a strategic decision." Chief Obinna's heart pounded with fury. "And I?" He requested sole custody. Chief Obinna felt the world spin. "And the supposed death?" Tunde lowered his gaze. "Your father decided to tell you. She had passed away. He believed it was simpler than explaining the conflict." Amaka put her hand to her chest. Chief Obinna stood up abruptly. "They lied to me my whole life." His voice boomed in the study. "Obinna," Tunde tried to calm him. "Your father wanted to protect the family reputation." "Protection." He spat the word with rage. "He stole my mother from me." The silence grew heavy. Amaka watched with moist eyes. The cold, calculating man was breaking down in front of her. "Is there anything else?" Tunde added with difficulty. Chief Obinna looked at him with contained fury. "Speak." "Your mother filed a complaint after the separation." Amaka's eyes widened. "A complaint?" "Yes." Tunde continued. "She claimed she was pregnant." Chief Obinna's heart almost stopped. "And your father contested the declaration. He alleged it wasn't his child." Chief Obinna felt nauseous. "Is that true?" "There was no DNA test. The case was closed due to your mother's lack of legal resources." The silence was devastating. Amaka felt that Mama Ngozi's story was beginning to fit. "That baby was born?" Chief Obinna asked in a voice barely audible. Tunde took a deep breath. "Yes." The world stopped. "Where is he?" Chief Obinna whispered. Tunde swallowed. "There are no subsequent records in our archives." Chief Obinna felt breathless. "What do you mean? No records? After the lawsuit, your father paid an out-of-court settlement." Amaka felt her blood boil. "A settlement?" "Yes. In exchange for Ngozi dropping any claim." Chief Obinna closed his eyes tightly. The image of his father, always so upright and honorable in public, began to crumble. "Do you know what this means?" he said, his voice broken. "It means I have a brother or sister somewhere?" Amaka took a step forward, and she didn't lie. Chief Obinna looked at Amaka for the first time with something different in his eyes. It wasn't superiority, it was vulnerability. "I need to find him." Tunde shook his head. "Almost 30 years have passed. I don't care." Chief Obinna took the photo again. "I won't let money bury the truth again." Amaka felt that something was profoundly changing in him. He was no longer the man who criticized her gesture in the park. He was a son, a wounded son. "Chief Okoro," she said softly. "Perhaps Mama Ngozi knows something more." Chief Obinna nodded. "We'll go see her today." Hours later, the three returned to Freedom Park. Mama Ngozi was on the same bench. When she saw Chief Obinna approaching with determined steps, her expression was a mix of fear and hope. "We need to talk," he said bluntly. Mama Ngozi nodded. The three sat down. Chief Obinna took a deep breath. "It's true, my father lied. You didn't die." Tears filled the old woman's eyes. "I knew it. I knew it." "And the baby?" he continued. "What happened?" Mama Ngozi's face filled with pain. "He was born in a public clinic in Ajagunli." Amaka felt a chill. "And then they told me there were complications, that he needed special care, that he would be transferred." Chief Obinna felt his heart break. "You saw him only once?" The old woman's voice was barely a whisper. "They took him from me. They said it was for his own good." Amaka closed her eyes. "Did they give you any documents?" Mama Ngozi slowly shook her head. "Only a letter saying the child had been adopted." Chief Obinna felt a punch to his chest. "Adopted?" "Yes." The silence was absolute. "Do you have that letter?" Mama Ngozi nodded. "I kept it all these years." Chief Obinna looked at the horizon. The world he knew was made of carefully constructed lies. "I'm going to find him." Amaka looked at him. There was determination in his voice. It wasn't the pride of before. It was a need. Mama Ngozi trembled. "Obinna, I don't want to cause you more pain." He looked at her with moist eyes. The pain is already here. What I want is truth. The wind blew hard in the park. Amaka felt that the story was about to become even deeper, because if that child had been adopted, then someone had grown up without knowing who they really were. And if Chief Obinna found him, nothing would ever be the same. The air in Freedom Park was no longer the same. There was something in Chief Obinna's gaze that Amaka had never seen before. It wasn't arrogance, it wasn't control, it was urgency, a silent urgency that doesn't come from pride, but from emptiness. Mama Ngozi, sitting on the bench, held her worn bag as if it contained the last piece of her past. "The letter is in my room," she said with a trembling voice. "I never dared to throw it away." Chief Obinna nodded. "Let's go now." Amaka hesitated for a second. She had never seen the billionaire walk so fast, caring less about who was watching him. He didn't have his usual rigid posture. He didn't look like the man who gave orders in millionaire meetings. He looked like a son, afraid of arriving too late. Mama Ngozi lived in a modest lodging house in Alguna, 20 minutes from the park, an old building with peeling walls and a damp smell. Chief Obinna stopped in front of the rusted metal door. That place didn't fit his world of marble and glass, but he entered. The room was small, a simple bed, an antique wardrobe, a table with an old lamp, and in a box under the bed, the past. Mama Ngozi knelt with difficulty and pulled out a cardboard box wrapped in plastic. Her hands trembled. "I never thought you would come back for this," she whispered. Chief Obinna knelt in front of her. For the first time, his eyes were not above someone. They were at the same level. Mama Ngozi opened the box. There were old photos, newspaper clippings, a child's bracelet, and a yellowed white envelope from years ago. She held it for a few seconds before handing it over. "Here is everything they let me know." Chief Obinna took the envelope. His hands were no longer steady. He opened it. The paper crinkled as it unfolded. Amaka watched in silence. The document bore the seal of a public clinic. Female patient, Ngozi Okoro, male newborn, stable condition, transfer authorized. Further down, a typed note. Minor to be placed under private adoption protocol. Mother voluntarily signs surrender of rights. Chief Obinna felt his blood boil. "Voluntary surrender," Mama Ngozi murmured. She shook her head with tears in her eyes. "They made me sign when I was sedated. They said if I didn't, I would never see you again." The silence was devastating. Amaka felt a huge weight in her chest. Chief Obinna crumpled the paper. "This is illegal." "At that time, no one listened to a woman without money," Mama Ngozi replied. Chief Obinna took a deep breath. "Does it say the adoptive family's name?" Mama Ngozi shook her head. "I never knew more." Amaka approached slowly. "Chief Okoro, with the protocol number, perhaps the file can be traced." Chief Obinna looked at her, and in his gaze there was something new. Respect. "You're right." He took out his phone. "Tunde," he said as soon as it was answered, "I need you to trace an adoption protocol from 1995, Ajagunle Public Clinic." There was a silence on the other end. "That's complicated, Obinna. These are old files. I don't care. Find it." He hung up. He turned to Mama Ngozi. "I'm not leaving this like this." The old woman looked at him with fear and hope mixed. "Obinna, if you find him, maybe he won't want to know anything about us." That possibility hit hard, because seeking the truth also means accepting rejection. "It doesn't matter," he said with a firm voice. "He has the right to know." Amaka felt that the man in front of her was not the same. There was something more human in his words, something that money had never given him. 2 days later, Tunde called. "I found something." Chief Obinna was in his study. Amaka was cleaning in silence, but her ear was attentive. "The file was transferred to a private adoption agency," Tunde continued. "It closed in 2002, but the archives were absorbed by another institution." Chief Obinna stood up. "Give me the address." That same afternoon, Chief Obinna and Amaka drove to an office in downtown Lagos. Amaka had never ridden in that car as a passenger. She always rode in the back or in public transport. Now she was sitting next to the billionaire. The silence was different, not uncomfortable, but charged with meaning. "Thank you," he said suddenly. Amaka looked at him, surprised. "For what, Chief?" "For not giving up on the tea." She looked down. "Sometimes small things change, big things." Chief Obinna nodded slowly. Perhaps all his life he had been looking for giant solutions when what he needed was something simple. They arrived at the office. A woman received them. We are looking for information about an adoption from 1995, Chief Obinna said, showing the document. The woman checked the digital archives patiently. Eternal minutes passed. Finally, she looked up. Here it is. Chief Obinna felt his heart pounding in his ears. The minor was adopted by a couple named Adewale. Amaka held her breath. Do they live in Lagos? No. They moved to Abuja 2 years later. Chief Obinna felt the world shift. The child's name? The woman hesitated. It was legally changed. Now he is listed as Femi Adewale. Femi. The name resonated in Chief Obinna's chest, like an unknown echo. Current age, 28 years. The same calculation they had made. Amaka felt the story become real. It wasn't just a memory. It was a living person. Can we get an address? The woman shook her head. Only under legal process. Chief Obinna clenched his jaw. We will initiate it. As they left, Amaka noticed something. Chief Obinna wasn't smiling. He wasn't euphoric either. He was scared. Are you afraid? She asked softly. Chief Obinna didn't answer immediately. I am afraid he will hate me. Amaka felt tenderness. Perhaps he won't. Perhaps he will. The billionaire who never feared losing money now feared losing an opportunity. That night, Chief Obinna returned to the lodging house. Mama Ngozi was waiting for him, sitting on the bed. Did you find anything? Yes. She held her breath. He's alive. Tears flowed uncontrollably. His name is Femi. He lives in Abuja. Mama Ngozi covered her face. Thank you. Thank you. Chief Obinna sat beside her, and for the first time in decades, hugged her. Amaka, standing at the door, felt the world stop. That hug wasn't elegant. It wasn't perfect. It was clumsy. It was late, but it was real. And sometimes, what's real is worth more than what's perfect. I'm going to look for him, Chief Obinna said with a firm voice. Mama Ngozi looked at him with fear. What if he doesn't want to see us? Chief Obinna took a deep breath. Then at least he'll know we tried. Amaka understood something profound at that instant. The tea was never just tea. It was the bridge. It was the spark that opened a door closed for almost 30 years. As they were about to leave, Mama Ngozi remembered something. There's something else. Chief Obinna looked at her. The day they took the baby from me, there was a nurse who was crying. Amaka frowned. Why? Because she said it wasn't fair. Chief Obinna felt a pang. Do you remember her name? Mama Ngozi thought. I think it was Mama Adaobi. Amaka's eyes widened. My mother's name is Mama Adaobi. The silence was absolute. Chief Obinna slowly turned to Amaka. What did you say? She swallowed. My mother worked many years in a public clinic in Ajagunle in the 90s. The world changed again. Is she still alive? Chief Obinna asked. Yes. Chief Obinna's heart pounded hard. I need to talk to her. Amaka felt that destiny was weaving something much bigger than they imagined. Because if her mother was that nurse, then there was someone else who knew the truth. And perhaps there were details that had not yet come to light. Chief Obinna looked at Mama Ngozi. This doesn't end here. And for the first time, his voice did not sound like a corporate promise. It sounded like the determination of a son who was no longer willing to live in lies. The past was beginning to open up, and what they would discover in Abuja could change not only Femi's life, but also Chief Obinna's and Amaka's. Because sometimes, when you decide to seek the truth, you discover that your story was connected to more people than you imagined. The journey from Ajagunle to Amaka's mother's house was silent. It wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It was a silence that weighed heavily. Chief Obinna drove with his gaze fixed ahead, but his mind was decades back, in a public clinic, in a delivery room, in a forced signature. Amaka had her hands clasped over her legs. She never imagined that the simple gesture of bringing tea would end up connecting her life with the history of her own employer. My mother doesn't talk much about the past, she said in a low voice. She was always reserved about her work. Chief Obinna nodded. I just need her to tell the truth. Amaka looked at him sideways. For the first time, she didn't see him as Chief Okoro. She saw him as a man rebuilding his identity piece by piece. They arrived at a simple house in a quiet neighborhood of Ajagunle. Walls painted light blue, a small garden with potted plants. Amaka got out first, knocked on the door. A woman in her late 50s opened it, hair tied back, warm gaze, noble tiredness. Amaka? She asked, surprised. Is everything all right? Amaka took a deep breath. Mama, we need to talk. The woman looked at Chief Obinna, recognized him instantly. The The blood drained from her face. "You," she whispered. Chief Obina felt a blow to his chest. "Are you Mama Adaobi?" She didn't respond immediately. Her eyes began to moisten. "Yes." Amaka felt her heart pounding. "Mama, did you work at the Ajegunle Public Clinic in 1995? Mama Adaobi closed her eyes for a second. "Yes." The silence grew heavy. Chief Obina took a step forward. "My mother gave birth there that year." Mama Adaobi looked at him as if she had been waiting for this moment for years. "I know." Amaka felt the ground disappear beneath her. "What?" Mama Adaobi took a deep breath. "Come in." They entered. The living room was small but cozy. Mama Adaobi sat down slowly. Her hands trembled. "I always knew this day would come," she said. Chief Obina felt a chill. "Then you know what happened?" Mama Adaobi lowered her gaze. "Your mother didn't want to sign." Chief Obina's heart stopped. "How?" They told her the baby needed special care, that it would be better to transfer him. She was weak, vulnerable, and she was sedated. Amaka put her hand to her mouth. "They forced her?" Mama Adaobi nodded. The child's father was present. He had lawyers, he had influence. Chief Obina felt rage begin to boil. "My father?" Mama Adaobi looked at him with compassion. "Yes." The silence was devastating. "I was young," Mama Adaobi continued. "I had no power. I could only observe." Amaka felt a lump in her throat. "Why were you crying?" she asked. Mama Adaobi looked at her daughter. "Because I saw how a mother was separated from her child without truly understanding what she was signing." Chief Obina felt the air grow heavy. "The baby was healthy?" Mama Adaobi held his gaze. "Yes." That word fell like a bomb. He didn't need transfer. He didn't need adoption. Amaka felt indignation course through her body. "Then it was a deception?" Mama Adaobi nodded. "Yes." Chief Obina stood up abruptly. "My father bought everyone's silence." Mama Adaobi gently shook her head. "Not everyone's." Chief Obina looked at her. "I kept a copy of the file." The hearts of the three quickened. "You have it?" Chief Obina asked, his voice tense. Mama Adaobi stood up. She walked to an old drawer, took out an envelope, and placed it on the table. "I could never destroy it." Chief Obina opened the envelope with trembling hands. There were medical records, signatures, a handwritten note. "Transfer requested by legal guardian, mother under effect of sedatives." Chief Obina felt his blood boil. Amaka observed every word. "This proves she was forced?" she asked. Mama Adaobi nodded. "It proves she was not in a condition to sign voluntarily." The silence was profound. Chief Obina took a deep breath. "With this, I can reopen the case." Mama Adaobi looked at him carefully. "Obina, don't just seek legal justice." He frowned. "What do you mean? Seek emotional truth." Amaka felt that phrase was important. Mama Adaobi continued. "Your father acted out of fear. I don't justify what he did, but fear generates cruel decisions." Chief Obina clenched his fists. "Fear of what?" Mama Adaobi looked at him directly. "Of losing control, of losing reputation, of losing you." The silence was revealing. Amaka understood something in that instant. Chief Obina's father had not acted solely out of malice. He had acted out of obsession, out of a need for dominance. "Does my brother know anything?" Chief Obina finally asked. Mama Adaobi shook her head. "I don't think so." Amaka looked at her mother. "Do you remember the name of the adoption intermediary?" Mama Adaobi thought for a few seconds. It was a man named Mr. Akintola. He worked with high-profile families. Chief Obina felt the story begin to fit together like a dark puzzle. "Is he still alive?" "I don't know." Amaka felt that each answer opened more questions. Chief Obina took the documents. "Thank you." Mama Adaobi looked at him with tenderness. "I also lost something that day." He looked at her, surprised. "I lost faith in the system." The silence became human. Amaka approached her mother and hugged her. "Thank you for not keeping silent." Mama Adaobi held her tight. "I never wanted you to live with lies." Chief Obina watched the scene and understood something that struck him with brutal softness. Love is not always perfect, but when it is sincere, it resists decades. He turned to Mama Adaobi. "Would you be willing to testify if necessary?" Mama Adaobi took a deep breath. "Yes." Amaka felt proud. Her mother had not been an accomplice. She had been a witness, and now she would be a voice. As they left the house, Chief Obina walked in silence. "What will you do now?" Amaka asked. "Travel to Abuja." She looked at him. "Alone?" Chief Obina hesitated for a second. He didn't look at her directly. "I want you to come." Amaka's eyes widened. "Me? You were the beginning of all this." Amaka's heart pounded. She never imagined she would end up being part of something so big. "All right." Chief Obinna took a deep breath. "We leave early tomorrow." That night, as the Lagos sky was tinged with orange and violet, 3 lives were changing at the same time. Mama Ngozi, in her small room, prayed in silence. Mama Adaobi, in her blue house, looked at the past with less guilt. And Chief Obinna, in his huge mansion, understood for the first time that power did not make him strong. Truth did. But the question that floated in the air was another. How would Femi react when he learned that his story was not the one he was told? Because finding him was only the beginning. The difficult part would be opening a door that had been closed for almost 30 years. And sometimes not everyone is ready to hear who they really are. The sunrise in Lagos was different that morning. Not because the sky was clearer, not because the air was different, but because for the first time in many years, Chief Obinna Okoro did not wake up thinking about business, but about a name. Femi. Amaka arrived punctually with a small backpack and a pounding heart. She had never left the city accompanying her employer, much less for something so personal. The black car sped along the express road towards Abuja, while the silence between them was heavy with unspoken thoughts. "What if he doesn't want to see me?" Chief Obinna asked suddenly, without taking his eyes off the road. Amaka took a few seconds to respond. Then, "At least he will know that there is a truth bigger than the one he was told." Chief Obinna nodded slowly. For years he had controlled contracts, companies, investments, but now he was facing something he could not calculate with numbers. The fear of not being accepted. They arrived at midday. Tunde had managed to obtain an address through a preliminary legal process. Femi Adewale lived in a quiet residential estate, far from ostentatious luxury, but comfortable. Amaka looked at the aligned houses, the well-kept trees, the cars parked in front of each garage. "Perhaps he had a good life," she whispered. Chief Obinna felt a lump in his throat. "I hope so." They parked in front of a cream-colored house with a small balcony. Chief Obinna took a deep breath before getting out. For a second, he hesitated. It wasn't physical fear, it was emotional fear. He rang the doorbell. Eternal seconds passed. The door opened. A man of about 28 appeared. Dark hair, firm gaze, calm posture, and something in his expression made the world stop because he had the same eyes as Chief Obinna. Amaka noticed it instantly. Femi frowned slightly. "Yes?" Chief Obinna opened his mouth, but the words didn't come out. He had never rehearsed this moment. He had never imagined that blood could recognize itself like this. "Femi Adewale." He finally managed to say, "Yes, who is looking for him?" Chief Obinna swallowed. "My name is Obinna Okoro." Femi looked at him without recognition. "Doesn't ring a bell." Amaka took a small step forward. "We've come to talk to you about something important." Femi assessed their faces. He saw no threat, but he did see tension. "I'm working," he said firmly. "If it's commercial, I'm not interested." Chief Obinna took a deep breath. "It's not commercial, it's personal." Femi hesitated. Finally, he opened the door a little wider. 5 minutes. They entered. The living room was simple, tidy. On a shelf there were family photos. Femi with an older couple, smiling. Chief Obinna felt something unexpected. Relief. He had been loved. Femi sat opposite them. "Okay, what is this about?" Chief Obinna felt his heart pounding in his chest. "Do you know that you are adopted?" The silence was immediate. Femi blinked once, then twice. "Yes," he replied with surprising calm. "My parents never hid it from me." Amaka felt the air circulate again. Femi crossed his arms. "What does that have to do with you?" Chief Obinna held his gaze. "It has to do with your origin." Femi did not lose his composure. "My origin is this house. My parents, my life." Chief Obinna nodded slowly. "And that doesn't change." The young man observed him cautiously. "Then explain." Chief Obinna took a deep breath. "Your biological mother's name is Ngozi Okoro." Femi froze. The firm expression began to crack, barely perceptible. "How do you know that?" "Because she is my mother too." The world froze. Amaka felt time stop. Femi stood up abruptly. "What are you saying?" Chief Obinna also stood up, but kept his distance. "I am saying that I am your brother." The silence became almost painful. Femi began to pace back and forth. No, this is not possible." Amaka watched with a pounding heart. Femi ran a hand through his hair. My parents told me that my biological mother couldn't take care of me, that it was a voluntary decision. Chief Obinna held his gaze. It wasn't. Femi stopped. Are you implying that I was stolen? The word fell like a stone. Chief Obinna did not dodge it. I am saying there was manipulation. Femi looked at him with incredulity and contained rage. And why should I believe you? Chief Obinna took out the copy of the file, placed it on the table. Because I have proof. Femi hesitated, took the papers, his eyes scanning the lines slowly. Amaka could see his breathing change. This is fake, he whispered, though his voice didn't sound convinced. There's a nurse willing to testify, Chief Obinna added, and my mother never stopped looking for you. Femi looked up sharply. She's alive? The question held no rage, but fear. Chief Obinna nodded. Yes. Femi felt the world tilt. For years he had imagined his biological mother as a shadow, a closed mystery. And now they were telling him she was alive, and that she had loved him. His voice broke slightly. I need to think. Amaka spoke for the first time directly to him. We didn't come to take anything from you. Femi looked at her. She held his gaze softly. We came to give you the option of knowing the truth. The young man took a deep breath. My adoptive parents are my family. Chief Obinna nodded. And no one wants to change that. Femi looked at the documents again. His world began to wobble. Why now? He finally asked. Chief Obinna lowered his voice. Because the truth came to light by chance, thanks to someone who brought tea every day to a woman no one looked at. Femi frowned. What? Amaka took a deep breath and recounted everything. The park, the tea, the confession, the investigation. Femi listened in silence. When she finished, the young man slumped into the armchair. This is too much. Chief Obinna felt a strange impulse. He didn't know whether to hug him or step back. He chose the latter. You don't have to decide anything today. Femi looked at him. There was something in Chief Obinna's eyes that wasn't calculation. It was vulnerability. She wants to see me? He asked in a low voice. Chief Obinna felt his heart stop. Yes. The silence was different. Now it wasn't rejection. It was fear mixed with curiosity. Femi looked at the family photo on the shelf, then back at Chief Obinna. I need to talk to my parents first. Chief Obinna nodded. That's right. Amaka felt relief. It hadn't been a violent closure. It had been a half-open door. Femi approached the door. Before they left, he said, If this is true, I want definitive proof. Chief Obinna held his gaze. You'll have it. When the car started back to the hotel, neither spoke for several minutes. Amaka finally broke the silence. He didn't chase us away. Chief Obinna exhaled slowly. That's something. He looked in the rearview mirror. He has my eyes. Amaka smiled faintly. And your way of frowning. Chief Obinna let out a brief laugh. It wasn't a business laugh. It was human. But he knew the hardest part was just beginning. Because now it wasn't just about documents. It was about emotions. And emotions aren't signed or filed. They are faced. In Abuja, Femi stood in front of the closed door, holding the papers, feeling that the life he knew had cracks. And for the first time in his life, he wondered who he really was. That night in Abuja, no one slept peacefully. In the hotel room, Chief Obinna sat by the window, gazing at the distant city lights, as if he could find an answer in them. Amaka was in the adjoining room, but she couldn't sleep either. She knew that what was at stake was no longer just a reunion. It was identity. It was belonging. It was a wound that had been open for almost 30 years. Meanwhile, in the cream-colored house in the quiet estate, Femi sat at the dining table with his adoptive parents, Chief Emeka and Mrs. Clara Adewale. The folder with the documents lay open before them. The silence weighed like a storm before it broke. Where did you get that? Clara asked, her voice trembling. Femi took a deep breath. A man named Obinna Okoro came to see me today. He says he's my brother. Chief Emeka froze. The surname fell on the table like an uncomfortable echo. Okoro, he repeated slowly. Clara lowered her gaze. Femi noticed. Did you know something? The silence was the answer. Mama, he insisted softly. I need to know. Clara began to cry silently. Chief Emeka placed a hand on her shoulder. We knew the adoption was a bit unclear. Femi felt his stomach clench. Unclear how? Chief Emeka sighed deeply. The intermediary assured us it was a voluntary surrender, but there were whispers, rumors, that the biological father had a lot of power. Femi felt the world begin to tilt. And you still signed? Clara looked up, her eyes full of tears. "We wanted you so much, son, that we didn't ask enough questions." The pain in her voice was real. Femi felt that his anger had no place to settle, because his adoptive parents were not villains. They had loved him, cared for him, given him a stable childhood. But now, another truth existed. "Did you know my biological mother was alive?" he asked, his voice broken. Clara shook her head fiercely. "They told us she had passed away shortly after childbirth." Femi closed his eyes. The lie had been bigger than he imagined, not just for him, but for everyone. The silence grew heavy. "Do you want to meet her?" Chief Emeka asked finally. Femi hesitated. His heart pounded. "I don't know." Clara took his hands. "Son, loving you never depended on your origin, but if you need answers, we won't stop you." That phrase gave him something he didn't expect: freedom. Femi took a deep breath. "I need to see her." The next morning, Chief Obina's phone vibrated. An unknown message. "I want to talk. Just me. No lawyers, no pressure." Chief Obina felt his heart race. Amaka, who was sitting opposite him at the breakfast table, noticed the change in his expression. "It's him." Chief Obina nodded. "He wants to talk alone." Amaka looked at him seriously. "Go." Chief Obina hesitated. "What if he rejects me?" Amaka held his gaze. "Then at least you would have been brave." Chief Obina took a deep breath and replied, "I'm here. Tell me where." The answer came minutes later. Hacienda Gardens Park, 11 a.m. Fate seemed to repeat the initial scene. Another park, another bench, another conversation that could change everything. Femi was sitting when Chief Obina arrived. He wasn't wearing a suit, no expensive watch, just jeans and a simple shirt. Chief Obina stopped in front of him. The resemblance was impossible to ignore. The same cheekbones, the same jawline. Femi broke the silence. "I didn't come to fight." Chief Obina nodded. "Me neither." They sat down. For a moment, neither knew what to say. "I always knew something didn't fit," Femi finally confessed. "But I didn't know what it was." Chief Obina listened without interrupting. "I haven't come to take your life from you," he said with honesty. "I just want you to have the option of knowing the truth." Femi looked down. "Why now?" Chief Obina took a deep breath. "Because a woman no one looked at reminded me what it means not to abandon someone." Femi looked up. "Did she really look for me all these years?" Chief Obina nodded. "She never stopped." The silence became soft, not tense. Femi swallowed. "And you?" Chief Obina hesitated for a second. "I didn't know you existed, but now that I do, I cannot ignore it." That sincerity changed something in the air. Femi took a deep breath. "I want to see her." The words were simple, but weighed like an opening door. Chief Obina felt his chest fill with something warm. It wasn't triumph, it was relief. That afternoon, Femi spoke with his adoptive parents. He explained his decision. Clara cried. Chief Emeka hugged him tightly. "Your heart is big," he told him. "That's what matters." Femi felt he wasn't losing a family. He was expanding his story. When the car left for Lagos, Chief Obina looked at Femi in the rearview mirror with a mixture of emotion and fear. Amaka, sitting in the back next to Femi, felt she was witnessing something sacred. No one spoke much, but the silence was no longer heavy. It was expectant. Mama Ngozi was sitting in her small room when she heard footsteps in the corridor. Chief Obina slowly opened the door. Femi stood in the doorway. Time seemed to stop. Mama Ngozi looked up. Their eyes met. The air disappeared. "Femi," she whispered, as if the name had been waiting on her lips for decades. Femi felt his heart pounding in his chest. He had imagined that moment many times since he knew the truth. But the reality was different, more fragile, more human. He approached slowly. Mama Ngozi stood up with difficulty. Her hands trembled. "Forgive me," was the first thing she said. "Forgive me for not protecting you." Femi felt something inside him break, because he saw no guilt. He saw pain. "It wasn't your fault," he whispered. Tears began to fall without permission. Mama Ngozi extended her hand, but did not dare to touch him. Femi took the last step and hugged her. It wasn't a perfect hug. It was clumsy, full of tears held back for years. Amaka felt her chest explode. Chief Obina watched with moist eyes, because that hug not only healed his mother, it also healed him. Mama Ngozi cried silently. "I thought of you every day," she whispered. Femi closed his eyes. "I didn't know, but I always felt something was missing." Time became irrelevant. 30 years compressed into a single instant. Chief Obina approached slowly. Femi looked up. They looked at each other for a few seconds and, without saying anything, hugged each other too. It was a different hug, more contained, but full of recognition. Amaka understood something profound. Family isn't always lost. Sometimes it just hides under layers of lies. When the three sat down, the silence was soft. Femi looked at Chief Obinna. I don't know what place I'll occupy in your life now. Chief Obinna nodded. We don't have to decide today. Femi looked at Mama Ngozi. I just want to get to know you. Step by step. She smiled through tears. That's enough. Amaka felt the story reaching a point of light, but she knew something was still missing. Because healing isn't erasing the past, it's learning to live with it. And there were still unanswered questions. Questions about Chief Obinna's father, about justice, about the decisions that had caused so much pain. But for the first time, the truth was no longer buried. It was sitting in that small room, breathing. And although the future was uncertain, there was hope. And sometimes hope is the greatest miracle. The hug didn't solve everything. It didn't erase the lost years. It didn't bring back the empty Christmases. It didn't mend exactly what was broken. But it did something more important. It stopped the abandonment. And sometimes that's the beginning of healing. Femi decided to stay a few days in Lagos, not in the lodging house, not in the mansion, but in a small intermediate hotel, because he needed space to understand what he felt. Chief Obinna respected that. For the first time in his life, he didn't try to control the pace of anything, he let it flow. Amaka noticed every detail. The man who once gave curt orders now asked softly, Are you comfortable? Do you need anything? Do you want to talk? Or do you prefer silence? Femi was not used to such vulnerability, but he didn't reject it either. One afternoon, the three walked through Freedom Park, the same bench, the same story that began with a flask of tea. Mama Ngozi wore a new sweater that Amaka had given her. Femi observed her in silence. Did you always come here? He asked. She nodded. It was the closest I could be to you without invading. Chief Obinna felt a lump in his throat, and I never knew. Mama Ngozi looked at him with tenderness. Don't blame yourself for what was hidden from you. Femi took a deep breath. Why didn't you fight harder? The question wasn't an accusation. It was pain. Mama Ngozi held his gaze. Because when everything is taken from you, sometimes all you have left is to survive. The silence was human, without reproaches, without judgments, only understanding. Chief Obinna knew something was pending. His father's name still floated like a shadow. One night, in the mansion study, he gathered Femi and Amaka. I don't want this to become a legal war, he said firmly. My father is no longer here. He cannot answer. Femi looked at him attentively, and so, I want to do something different. Amaka felt curious. Chief Obinna took a deep breath. I'm going to create a foundation in our mother's name. Mama Ngozi was present, her eyes filled with surprise. For what? For women who have been silenced by power. For mothers who lost their children due to unjust decisions. Femi observed him. He no longer saw just the businessman. He saw the man who was choosing to heal instead of taking revenge. That doesn't change what happened, Femi said. No, Chief Obinna replied, but it can prevent it from happening again. The silence was filled with meaning. Amaka felt tears in her eyes. She never imagined that a simple tea would end up creating something so grand. The following days showed a real transformation. Chief Obinna began to visit Mama Ngozi without haste. He sat and listened to stories from her childhood. He discovered details he never knew. That he liked to sleep hugging a cloth doll. That he was afraid of the dark. That he laughed loudly when he was happy. Femi also listened. He recognized himself in some traits and in others discovered differences that made him unique. They didn't compete. They didn't try to occupy a place that was already taken. They learned to coexist. Amaka observed everything with a full heart because she had witnessed the beginning and now saw the fruit. One afternoon, Femi asked to speak to Chief Obinna alone. They sat on the mansion's terrace. The sunset painted the sky orange and violet. I don't know what place I'll occupy in your life, Femi said honestly. Chief Obinna didn't hesitate. Whatever you want. Femi looked at him. I don't want your money. Chief Obinna smiled softly. I didn't offer it. There was a comfortable silence. I want time, Femi continued. I want to get to know you without pressure. Chief Obinna nodded. I want that too. And for the first time, both smiled without tension. It wasn't a grand promise. It was something simpler, presence. One morning, Amaka returned to the park with a flask. Mama Ngozi was no longer alone. Femi accompanied her. Chief Obinna also arrived minutes later. The four sat down. Amaka served the tea. The steam rose slowly. Mama Ngozi smiled. "Do you know what's most incredible?" she said, looking at Amaka. "That it all began with this." Amaka lowered her gaze humbly. "I just didn't want her to be alone." Femi held the flask in his hands. Sometimes small things change what seemed impossible. Chief Obinna looked at Amaka. "I never apologized to you." She looked up, surprised. "For what, Chief?" "For having believed that helping was a waste of time." Amaka smiled softly. "It's never too late to see things differently." Chief Obinna took a deep breath, and in that instant, he understood something no business ever taught him. Power isn't in controlling, it's in connecting. Life doesn't give back lost years, it doesn't erase lies, it doesn't exactly mend what was broken, but it does offer opportunities. Opportunities to choose differently, to stop the chain of silence, to transform pain into purpose. A cup of tea isn't just tea. It can be company, it can be a bridge, it can be the beginning of a buried truth. Sometimes we believe we need grand gestures to change the world. But the world changes when someone decides not to pass by, when someone looks at those everyone ignores, when someone says, "I won't leave you." Chief Obinna learned that money doesn't buy lost time, but it can invest in justice. Femi understood that knowing the truth doesn't erase the love he received, it expands it. Mama Ngozi discovered that it was never too late for an embrace. And Amaka confirmed something she already knew in her heart, that kindness is never small. If this story left something in your chest, if you ever felt that the world was too cold, remember this. You can always be the hot tea in someone's winter, because we don't know what doors a simple gesture can open. And perhaps, without realizing it, you are changing a story much bigger than your own. Thank you for reaching this far. If this story touched your heart, share it and tell us in the comments. Has a small gesture ever changed your life? Because sometimes what seems insignificant is exactly what saves everything.